Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So a really important first question, what is your Amazon username and password?
Yeah, I can give that out, but unfortunately you won't be able to shop because all the shopping is done by my wife at home, right? So even though I give that password out, it comes to common identity, right?
I thought if you work for Amazon, you get everything for free. You can order as much as you want. That's not the case?
Yeah, absolutely we can.
So we're talking about mobile commerce and mobile payments. Let me ask you this first question. What does mobile commerce mean to you?
Yeah, for me, mobile commerce means how do I, there's a lot of traffic and other things we've talked about 60, 70% of traffic originating in the mobile. But the last mile of that is how do you sign in and complete that transaction? That is still a friction point for customers. And for me, when I have that one-click checkout translated to mobile, that's the real, end game for mobile. And there you have driven complete transaction end-to-end on mobile devices. That's, I feel, how mobile is done. And the key part there is identifying the customer and making that a single-click checkout, right? That's our golden rule.
So I know in my experience, we see a lot of mobile traffic to our websites we work with, in the Gentleman's Box and other sites, e-commerce sites I work with. So you're saying there's friction that you're seeing from a mobile processing standpoint. Why is that?
Yeah, so if you think about the form field of checkout, right, you have 20 fields, 200 characters. By the time I'm done typing on that mobile device, I get tired just typing my last name. If you count the characters on my last name, that becomes very cumbersome. If you can make that very simple and make it seamless, a password I remember, I don't have to register on every site, how do I make that easy? And moreover, how do I make it easy across devices and platform, not tied to an operating system or a specific device ecosystem? Make it agnostic and make it seamless and easy. That's mobile commerce for you.
What do you see as far as an average checkout time, or where do you see the most friction in there? Are there some statistics or some data that is helping draw some of these conclusions in there?
Yeah, so what we have seen, at least from a conversion standpoint on mobile, is still in the very, very low numbers, single-digit numbers from mobile conversion standpoint.
As far as the conversion percentage
goes? The
goes?
conversion itself on mobile. And the biggest drop-off is typically what we see in our partners talk about is when you get to that page of signing in, creating an account, that is one friction point. The next friction point is, adding that address and, saying, okay, where do I ship the product to? Do I ship it to myself or am I giving it as a gift to somebody else? If that is the case, then I do re-enter this. Even though I created an account previously, I have to re-enter that whole information again. And then, I had to enter that 16-digit credit card with expiration date and all that good stuff over and over again. So that adds to the friction in terms of the time it takes to complete that checkout experience.
So you're with Amazon. I assume something like Amazon Pay and other payment platforms, that can help alleviate that friction?
Yeah, so when we think about Amazon Pay, what we focus on is how do you translate that same experience that you have on Amazon.com on merchant sites and make that checkout experience pretty seamless. All you have to do is use your Amazon account login information and everything else shows up on the page. If you have 10 different shipping addresses that you typically ship to your mom, your aunt, or other things, that shows up on the site. And all your credit cards you ever used on Amazon is available for you. So it is pretty much, if you know, okay, here's the address I shipped to, it's already pre-clicked and pre-selected. It's like you log in and you, boom, hit checkout and you're done. And especially on the subscription side of business, it makes it much more easier because now you have an account and identity that you constantly use every day. Pretty much on shopping on Amazon.com and the interactions you have, either you're thinking about other things that Prime subscription, others that you do. So that's top of mind for you. You use it day in and day out, and it easy translates to the partner sites. It makes it much more easier.
Have you seen anything, any data that suggests that obviously then there's an increase in conversion rates because of something like that?
So we have a number of case studies on our site. The checkout increase or the speed of checkout increased by 70% on some of our partners. That is one piece. The second piece is typically given the propensity of the type of shopper we cater to, the average order value is much higher, so they subscribe to a greater subscription box. If you think about the premium products, they subscribe to that. In addition, what happens from overall experience of risk and fraud and other mitigations, we have robust tools in machine learning that is applied that reduces that overall fraud levels as well. So those are the areas that we help with overall standpoint from a conversion from end to end, both from start to finish.
So when we think about mobile commerce today, cell phone, tablets come to mind. What's the future of mobile commerce? Where do we see this going?
Yeah, as we think about, there's a lot of connected devices, right? Everything starting from connection at home, connection in your car, all these are connected ecosystems that are growing. And as we think about commerce itself, different devices or platforms are converging. And that connected ecosystem is where commerce is going to think about, it can be voice as a medium of commerce, other things that are evolving is key frontiers as I think about commerce, make it frictionless, make it easy. Again, coming back to the underlying identity piece and the identifying the customer, you want to have a unified experience across these platforms that makes it much more easier for people to check out.
So you're saying I'll be able to walk into my kitchen and say, Alexa, order me a gentleman's box someday?
Yeah, it could, it's a good possibility that you can think about, right? So those are the evolution.
I don't want to be too much gentleman's box, but it could be anything. So if you're integrated with Amazon, the future could be integration with Alexa?
There is a lot of evolution that is happening in the connected ecosystem.
Okay.
And, there is a lot of new things happening in there. It's still early days, but I think evolution can happen in those directions. Again, at Amazon Pay, we focus on the simplification of checkout all through the process. The other piece which I've noticed, as you think about subscription as a business, right? One of the key areas is how do I retain that customer and have a lifetime value with the customer? The common pain points we see is either the credit card is expired or something happens, especially a lot of fraud happening and chip cards being issued, the card becomes kind of defunct. Mm-hmm. And the biggest challenge or pain point is now from a merchant servicing standpoint, they're to call the customer and say, is that information current? Because the card typically declines and all that side. And there was talk about earlier in presentations about dunning cycles and all that good stuff. Yeah. So how do you minimize that and make it much more simpler? And that's where tools like Amazon Pay comes into play, because we have so much interaction with the customer. They keep the card information current with us. So it simplifies not alone the upfront conversion, but ongoing lifetime value of the customer. And that's what we make it very frictionless and easy for the customer to shop.
So it's really about the payment side of things, and when we look at how the subscription, the recurring billing, all that's tracked, that still stays in the back end of our systems as we have them today.
Yeah, absolutely. All the information, order management and other things is in the background. We enable the front end piece and make it much more frictionless, and you call into our systems to complete those transactions pretty seamlessly. Ultimately, it's your customer, they're shopping with Gentleman's Box or other boxes, and it makes it much more easier from that perspective.
What about rolling my subscription business into the Amazon platform itself? Is that a possibility? Is that something that's on a roadmap somewhere?
There are, Popular Press has a number of, press releases around that. It could be a possibility, but again, the current focus is about Amazon Pay and making it easy on your web properties.
Interesting. So, what do you see as the future? Obviously, we hear about Walmart and Apple and all these large organizations developing their payment processing platforms. It could end up being a lot of fragmentation out there. I've got to log in at these various major spots. How does something like that get solved, or what do you see as the future?
It's an interesting development is happening in the payment space, right? But ultimately, it comes down to what the customer choice is. Where does the customer transact more often, every day, and other things, and how do you maintain that relationship? And that's where, with the Amazon relationship we have, with 300 million active plus a million active accounts that we have on Amazon, it makes it much more easier. And moreover, we go across devices and platforms. We are agnostic to that, and we make it pretty frictionless from that perspective.
All right, so look out 10 years from now. What do you see as the future of commerce?
Yeah, I think...
And that's a long ways away, by the way.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, right? Crystal ball, how do you guess? Would you have predicted that mobile would change how it has evolved in the last 10 years? Probably not. I think going back to our earlier discussion about connected commerce, I think the next frontier could be how home convergence happens or in-car convergence happens. Those are ecosystems. The Internet of Things is changing how people interact, and everyday interaction makes it interesting developments that can happen. So I think there's a lot of developments in the space.
So you're saying I'll be able to order new jeans from my refrigerator?
It's a possibility if you want to think about that, right? But it's it's an interesting one, right? How do you make it? I would think about this being customer centric and say, where do you want to have the customer begin their shopping journey? and make it easy, frictionless through the process. If refrigerator is a good choice, perhaps, but I would focus on where customers begin and make a customer-centric approach.
So we might have touched base on this a little bit in terms of looking at form completion. What do you see as, maybe another struggle or some of the biggest struggles for subscription box companies out there right now in your world?
Yeah, so as I alluded to earlier, the key piece is the maintaining that ongoing touch point, right? People typically say, okay, I tried this, and then can you maintain the lifetime value of the customer? I think that is where you want to create that frictionless commerce possible. It is also the upfront sign-in process that makes it difficult. So there is two options there. You create commerce logins that make it much more easier for the upfront sign-in, and then the completion of the purchase and the ongoing maintenance. Those are the things that will make it much more easier. And as you think about upsell, cross-sell, all in the underlying identity of the customer will help you understand the customer better and cater to their taste.
So is that's data then that we can receive from the payment platform or would
so,
be able to?
From Amazon Pay, we give the customer information for you to service, right? We give the name, email address, and the shipping address for you to service that customer. So you have that information. The transaction is ultimately residing with you. You have all that good information about that customer, which is an economically rich customer that you have. So you can utilize that to provide the right level of service that you need for the customer.
Got it. Okay, so one kind of big burning question I have is looking at Amazon Echo and where that's evolving to. And we see a lot of different iterations of this product. The new Echo Show, I think it's called, just came out, and a whole bunch of things. What's that ecosystem look like, and would companies like ours have access to something like that and to build into that ecosystem in the future?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Wasn't it cool that you saw that Echo commercial where people were interacting with it? There's a video and other things. So as everything Amazon, we think about the customer and approach it in the right way. So different possibilities would exist. Again, tying it back to Amazon payments and identity, I think that's the underlying one, if you will, identity that will enable this across the board.
Cool. Well, I know we're running up on our time here, but is there any other final pieces that you want to add, or anything else that you think would be valuable for this room here, from the large to the small companies?
Yeah, so I would think about commerce from those aspects. Again, is mobile becoming centric? Mm-hmm. How do you think about customer acquisition through conversion, through our lifetime value? It's an ongoing cycle. And the key piece, again, is also thinking about, is fraud a key area that would you focus on? I think there is increasing trends of going to online fraud, but then, depending on the type of box you offer and the high value items you may sell in there, that might be another consideration to think about. There's bad actors out there. How do you control that fraud in a successful way? And again, this is where other alternate payment types really help you control that in a structured way.
So it sounds
Those are the areas that I would think about from end-to-end perspective, and how do you make this easy in desktop, mobile, or others?
So it sounds like really lowering the barrier to completing that transaction and getting them through there, and then watching that process and that flow.
Yeah, I think that you continuously evolve and optimize this, and I think continuous optimization is the name of the game.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. Really appreciate your time and being part of this.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.